All right. This is Google Hangout 3, Group 16. The prompt is, please discuss with your group members situations in which you have employed the various sources of power and influence referenced by Hackman and Johnson. Work to tie those experiences to your role as a leader or as a follower. Finally, discuss ways in which cultural difference may influence the way we interact with leaders and employ power. I can go first. Situations in which I've used the various sources of power. First, I would use, I'll talk about legitimate power, which is power in which you're put in. So, like when I worked at this place called Hot and Juicy on Mill in Tempe, I eventually became a manager because I would work the most hours out of most people there. So eventually, I worked my way up to a manager position. Which gave me a legitimate power over other people. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to really fire anyone or anything like that unless they did something like really inappropriate. But it kind of just gave me, if there were any decisions that needed to be made, I was the person that was in charge. So that was like the legitimate power I was given. And another thing I could use was reward power. I was able to edit the shifts of people if they needed something, or if they were doing well, I could give them the shifts that they wanted. If they were on time all the time, I could give them like Friday shifts, because generally there's more money to be made on the weekends. And then I'm going to touch on real quick some of the cultural differences that we have. I would say like international differences, obviously, because of culture, but I'm going to talk more about cultural difference in terms of age differences. I feel like, and especially when it comes to the business world, there's a lot of like old school kind of players, like people that were growing up in a different time. Things like tattoos are seen like way different from guys that are way older, people that are in charge. Same with like the way they see like even drugs like marijuana, that's becoming more and more acceptable in today's times. People that were growing up, back when there was a war on drugs like marijuana, they probably would see it completely different than maybe someone like me that's growing up now that maybe has a better view of something like that can be used medically. They would obviously see it very different. And when you're engaged in situations like that, you have to remember that some guys can be from a different time, especially when you're dealing with executives, people like that are older. They grew up in different times. They don't see things the same way as you do. And you have to plan accordingly, especially if you want to influence them in any way. Yeah, that's all I've got. Anybody else want to go?
I can go next. So as I was taking a look at this, one of the things I was reminded of was I've spent over 2 decades working with Starbucks and had the opportunity to manage a high-profile location in Seattle. And part of what brought me to that store was kind of the expert power. I happened to be the one who was a subject matter expert in a lot of different things, and so I had the opportunity to be able to share that knowledge with people. It was something that took a long time to develop. But then also from a cultural standpoint, we had made a decision to connect with customers that came from different parts of the world, because it was a store that was somewhat high profile, but also was very international. So we hired a number of people who spoke Japanese, Korean, different languages to be able to help with, to break down a cultural barrier. And one of the things that I had to learn as a leader in that instance was my communication style had to change based on the cultural background of the people that we brought into the store. For instance, we had a young woman who spoke Japanese and was amazing at connecting with customers, but wouldn't tell me if there were times that she was uncomfortable working too many hours or things, because that wasn't appropriate in her culture to be able to speak to her manager that way. And so we spent some significant time walking through what that could look like to ensure that I was giving her the freedom to do that, but at the same time giving her some other understanding. The other thing that I was thinking through was we've spent a lot of time within our organization looking at how to empower people to be a significant part of the culture that we've created at Starbucks. So for example, we've taken what we call lean thinking or the Toyota way. where you involve everybody in the decision-making process, so it's much more democratic, which eliminates more of the authoritarian leadership and coercion leadership that we see, and overall have seen much more success as a result.
That was really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go next. Well, I'm going to be talking about referent power, because that's the source power that I could relate to the most, along with expert power. Well, at the shelter that I used to work at, I became intake team leader. So that intakes is basically admitting new kids into the shelter, and that included giving them clothes and food, and telling them the rules about the shelter and all those things. So there I became, I would say, not an expert, but I became very knowledgeable about how everything ran, in the intake team. And before that, I was a youth care worker, and as a youth care worker, well, I gained that experience of how to deal with the kids, or what's the policy within the shelter on how to engage with them, or treat them, or if there's a conflict, like how to react to it, or the guidelines to it. And so for when I was in intake team, they would ask me, the employees wouldn't only ask me questions about the intake team, but also about the youth care worker department, because I knew how everything ran throughout the whole department. And as for the referent power, I had learned that from I had learned from my brother that if you treat, it's just like a general rule, right? If you treat others with respect, everybody's going to treat you with respect. But the way my brother would treat others, it was like, for example, if you're like in a team and you ask everybody before everything else starts, or before you even ask for a favor, you ask, hey, how are you, or how's everything going? Is everything okay? Do you need help? So the referent power, like it says here, it's nurtured with time. So you can get the respect with time. You don't get it, that fast. And regarding the cultural differences, I'm going to go ahead and talk about generational cultural differences when it comes to age differences in management. So, for example, maybe the baby boomers in general, Generation X, most of them are managers. They were the ones who, were had seniority in the organization, or had the most experience in whatever department or task that they were in. And so now time has changed, and more young people are becoming managers, and so there kind of creates a little conflict, because an older person having a young person as a manager kind of maybe takes away the respect. Well, it doesn't take away, but does not respect that young person as they would respect an older person. So, yeah.
I'll be the last one this time, if that's possible.
All right, I'll go next. The one that I'll be talking about is legitimate power. I've had this example at my work when I had to help train some employees that we were getting, because we were getting too much in our department. So I had to help alleviate some of the training schedules. So I had to teach somebody how to do various tasks at our job, and it was very interesting. So with the legitimate power, I was put into that position. So I had to adapt my way of how I do my tasks in order to instruct them how to do it. For the culture difference for that, kind of like how you guys said, it was the age difference, because a lot of the people we were getting were usually older generations. So they were like 5, 10, if not up years older than I was. So for me to be able to show them how to do the different tasks at times was very frustrating for them because I was younger than them and they didn't feel like I was giving them as much respect as they should have because they've been working longer than I have, and they feel that they know how to do a task better than how we were supposed to be doing a task. So that was one common cultural issue that I came across when I was yeah.
Tower, Davi, you guys want to go?
Tao, you wanna go first, or you wanna make to go first?
I don't think he can
His
hear us.
microphone.
Oh yeah, I don't think he does he have a mic or anything?
I don't know. I'll just keep talking. I want to be the last one because I've never worked, so I don't really have those like it's hard for me like to tell those experiences. But I can tell the ones I had in school. There can be like there is this class that I had a group and no one. It was 4 members. It was me. It was someone from I don't know. I think somewhere from the Mediterranean and 2 people from China. We were the only groups without any Americans, you know, and it was a communication class, you know, and it's always good to have like someone who truly understands English so he or she could write our papers better. I mean, it was interesting with like, people from different countries and, you know, different cultural backgrounds, but we had a problem. And the problem was the language barrier. Whenever we would write our papers, like be the one who would correct the grammar. I don't think my grammar is the best, and we would lose points for that. So I would say it can be good. It will give you that experience, this new knowledge, like working with people from different, you know, areas of the world, but sometimes can also be challenging. I think I would go with referent power. I think I agree with Liz. I think that's the best way to kind of captivate someone is by referent power. Now, do you hear us? Can you type it? Maybe he could just write something like fast so he can participate or something. We can give him like 3 minutes.
Put it in the chat or something like that.
Yeah. Oh. Can you write like down? Just write it down and just send it to the chat.
Can you see the chat on the video though? Like if you watch the video, can you see the chat? I don't think you can.
I think you have to go on your top left. Yeah, go on your top left. Then you will see the first icon. It's a blue icon. It says chat.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know if you can see that when you actually watch the video. Like she's just watching the video. I don't think she's doing Google Hangout, so I don't think she can see that.
Oh, he's not. Oh, this is confusing.
This is just a YouTube video. She's just watching the recording. The chat's part of Google Hangout. I don't think she sees that.
Can you hear me? We can no. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? I don't think he does. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
Maybe you can email. I don't know because he is not hearing us. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the best thing he could do is probably just email the teacher and submit. But we can say that he was here. I'll turn it in and still put his name.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
All right. All right, cool guys. I'm gonna stop the broadcast.
Okay, bye.
Okay.